Hey, what's up? Tristan from Huge Menace here. Welcome to part 11 of the ND add-on deep dive series. In this video, we'll cover the packaging operators. The packaging operators are a unique category as they don't strictly relate to non-destructive modeling. They support the typical workflow required to export your final objects for use in other external programs such as Marmoset Toolbag, Substance Painter, various game engines, etc. Let's get started. The first section under packaging we'll cover is material IDs. Material IDs are used on high poly objects during baking to mask areas on your low poly object that require special treatment or specific textures. We've included a collection of 22 different colors you can choose from. Applying a material ID is straightforward. Select the object you wish to target and select a color from the packaging materials menu. While in object mode, ND will apply the material to the entire object. If you wish to be more specific, you can jump into edit mode and select the geometry you want to affect. For example, choose a face on this cube and apply a different material ID. Remember, if your object doesn't currently have a material ID applied and you attempt to apply a material ID on specific geometry in edit mode, ND will apply it to the entire object instead. This behavior occurs because Blender requires a general material on an object before a specific geometry-based material application can occur. So typically, I select all of my high poly meshes and apply a white material ID at the start. Then I systematically work through the meshes at an object or geometry level as required. If you know that each mesh requires a unique material ID at an object level and you have 22 or fewer of them, you can have ND automatically apply a random material ID to them. Select the objects you wish to affect and choose Bulk Assign Materials. This operation will randomly pick a material ID for each object and ensure that each one uses a unique color from the list. If you select more than 22 objects, bulk assigned materials will be disabled, as only 22 unique IDs are included with ND. But nothing stops you from duplicating an existing material ID or creating new ones with your colors. If you wish to reset or remove material IDs quickly, select the objects you want to affect and choose Clear All Materials. Okay, let's move on to the next set of operators, which deal with object and mesh names. Here I have an example of a high poly object. I'll start by giving it an incredibly verbose and descriptive name. When you name an object in Blender, only the object's name changes, but the mesh name remains unchanged. You'll want to update the mesh name to keep things organized and have your names consistent. I only have one object here, so this exercise isn't entirely taxing. However, if you've just gone through the process of naming 10, 20, or 100 objects, you're probably not in the mood to do it all again for every mesh. So, select the objects you want to tidy up and choose Name and Data Sync. This operation will ensure all your object and mesh data names are identical. Let's take the next logical step in a high and low poly workflow. I'll duplicate the high poly object and remove the surface details I'll be baking to a normal map. Next, I want to add the suffix high to the high poly object and low to the low poly object. I could manually rename them, but where's the fun in that? Select the high poly object and choose high LOD. This will instruct ND to add the high suffix to your object's name and ensure the mesh name matches. You can repeat this operation for the low poly. You can run these operations on as many objects as you want simultaneously. Quick note, the LOD in the operator names does not refer to LODs you may be familiar with if you're creating game assets, for instance. In this case, it refers to a high and low level of detail, or interchangeably, your high poly object and your low poly object. We may add actual LODing operations in the future. Okay, up next is the UV seams operator. This operator rapidly adds sharp edges and UV seams to your object at a specified angle. To demonstrate, let's select this object and run the operator. I run my sharp edges at 30 degrees, so the default here is perfect, but you can change it to any angle you want from 0 to 180. You also have the option to apply smoothing at 180 degrees, which is typically what you want for best results when baking. I'll go with both defaults and confirm the operation. Let's jump over to the UV editing workspace and look at the result. I'll start by ensuring I have selected all the geometry, then run a UV unwrap, and voila, we have a perfectly unwrapped object. Of course, if your object is more complicated, you'll still need to add additional UV seams to reduce stretching and perform a complete unwrap. but this certainly removes a large, tedious chunk of the work. Finally, let's add the icing to the cake and triangulate our object so we don't encounter strange issues when importing it into another application. To do this, select it and choose Triangulate. ND adds a triangulation modifier and ensures it preserves any mesh normals. You're now ready to go off and texture this beauty. Alright, in the following video, we'll look at the utils category. I'll see you there.